Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about finding part of a whole, and we're going to go ahead and start with these 4 examples. Now, like I said before, you need to please write down everything that I write down exactly as I have it in order for you to receive full credit, okay? So let's go ahead and start with number 1. It says, determine 25% of 260. Now, there are actually 2 ways to do this, so I'm going to show you both of them. The first one is by setting up a proportion. Now, remember we talked about how a proportion is actually 2 fractions that are equal to each other. So the first fraction is going to represent the percent. So I'm going to write 25% over 100 because percent always has a total of 100, and I'm going to set that equal to 260. That is my total, so that's going to go in the denominator. Now x is the number that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a part of the total, okay? Now another way that you could do this is by changing your percent into a decimal. So we know that 25% is the same thing as 0.25. So you could also multiply 0.25 times your total, 260. Okay? Now both of them are going to give you the same answer. It doesn't matter which one you do it. Now it's important that you know how to set up the proportion because that is going to be on the CBA. So it's important that you know where to put each of these numbers, okay? So if you multiply 0.25 times 260, you get 65. And 65 would be your answer, okay? All right, let's start with number 2. And it says 0.35% of 500, okay? So again, we're going to set up our proportion. Now this time we're going to have 0.35 over 100. Now the reason that I have to have a point here is because my percent has a point, so I have to leave it on there. And that's going to equal something over 500, okay? Now, just like I said before, you can also turn the percent into a decimal by moving the decimal 2 times to the left. So you would have 0.0035, and you can multiply that times your total, 500. Okay? Now you can also ask yourself, how do I get from 100 to 500? Well, if you multiply this by 5, you multiply this by 5, you still get the same thing. You should get an answer of 1.75. Okay? All right, so let's start with number 3. Now, this percent is actually greater than 100. So we have 175 over 100. Now, even though the percent is greater than 100, the total for percent is going to continue to be just 100, okay? It doesn't matter how big it gets. The total will still be 100. And we're going to set that equal to something over 56, okay? Now, 175% is equal to 1.75 as a decimal. So you can multiply 1.75 times 56 to get your answer of 98. Okay? And the last example we're going to do on this side is 8% of 85. So again, we have 8 over 100 equals to something over 85. Now, 8% is equal to 0.08 because the 8 is in the hundredth place. So 8 hundredths has to have the 8 in the hundredths place. The 0 represents the tenths place. So you can multiply 0.08 times 85, and you get your answer, which is 6.8. Okay? So I've showed you two methods, the proportion and changing the percent to a decimal and multiplying by the total. Like I said, either way gets you your answer. Now, you can go ahead and pause the video so that you can take some time to answer the 4 questions at the bottom. I want you to set up the proportion and to change it to a decimal and then multiply. So I want to see both of them on all 4 problems. Okay? Now, on the back, this time it's going to be a little bit different. This time we're going to be either finding the percent or we're going to be finding the total. So we're going to be using something that's called a percent proportion. Okay? And a percent proportion has one ratio that compares a part to the whole. And the other ratio is the equivalent percent written as a fraction with a denominator of 100. So this is what your percent is going to look like, and it's important that you know where each piece goes. So in the numerator is always going to be your part. The denominator is going to be your whole. And then over here, this is going to represent your percent, which always has a denominator of 100. So you're going to put your percent, whatever percent you have, the number goes here, over 100. Okay? All right, so we're only going to be doing 2 examples this time. And for the first one, it says 18 is what percent of 25? So I'm looking for the percent. I don't know what it is. So if I look up here, I have to put the part. The part is 18. So 18 over 25 is equal to, do I know the percent? No, I'm looking for that. So I'm going to put an X over, the denominator has to be 100. Okay? Now to solve, you ask yourself, 25 times what number gives me 100? Well, that's 4. So 18 times 4 is going to give me X is equal to 72. Okay? Now, for the next example, this is actually written wrong, so I want you to cross this out. And I want you to write 300 is 60% of what number? Okay? So 300 is 60% of what number? Okay? So we know that we have the percent. So let's go ahead and write 60 over 100, because percent always has a denominator of 100. Now this time I'm looking for the whole. I'm looking for the total. So this is X. And 300 is only a part of the total. That's only a part of it. So we need to ask ourselves again, how do I get from 60 to 300? So 60 times 5 is 300. So if I multiply 100 times 5, then I should get X is equal to 500. Okay? Now, you have 2 examples at the bottom. Like I said, follow the same strategies. Make sure you set up the proportion. I want to see the proportion on each problem so that I know that you know where to put each number. Where does it belong? Okay? Thank you for watching.